There we go. This will be Thursday, November 14th. We're going to take a look at story Hey You down there, and we have the homework. This is the last day I put the Remind 101 up there. Vocab test coming up on Monday.
Good job.
Homework comes due next Tuesday. It'll connect to the quiz tomorrow to help you out from there.
Good job.
Now we get to our story Hey You down there. Let's see. That's fine. We'll run through this real quick to try and give you a chance. Then hopefully, we had what, one person do? Two people? We'll try to give a third person a chance in just a moment to try and help you out. We'll go through, do the hand signs with you, and then we'll take a volunteer and move on from there. So once again, we have
characters, who's in the story, setting, when and where, plot, what happens, point of view, how we see the story, theme, what we learn, internal conflict, major decisions, external conflict, something versus something.
Alright.
Oh, I want to.
And then from there, now we can take the volunteer to go. Let's see if I have anyone who has like low points. Who wants to go from there to that? You've already gone, Lindsay. Good try. Paper. You guys all have no one down with not many points. To there. And lowest one would be Coulson. Alright, Coulson.
Characters.
Alright. Alright.
Characters, who is in the story, the setting,
Yes.
what, when and where,
Good.
plot, what happens and
Yay.
what happens,
Uh-huh.
point of view, what we see in the story,
Not what we see. How.
how we see the story,
Good job.
theme, what we learn, internal conflict,
Major.
decision in the story,
Nicely done.
and external conflict, something versus something.
Nicely done, Coulson. Alright, we'll get you your points there. Hopefully we'll get a chance to have someone else to go again here at the end.
How much do I have now?
Sounds like math. You've lost 3 and gained 5. Yeah. With our story, we have 2 characters introduced so far. Who are the 2 characters we have up to now? Christy?
Wait, what was the question?
What 2 characters we have in the story so far?
Calvin and
And Josh.
Dora.
Good job. Josh, if you don't stand, it's going to cost you points.
Dang.
I
As
thought
soon
he
as
was
your
gonna
head goes down, if you're not looking at me, it costs you points unless you stand. It's your choice. Yep. Nice one, Calvin and Dora. So with that, how would you guys describe Calvin? What kind of person is he? Lolo?
He is a sounds like he's from the country, and he has a thick accent.
All right. Country, thick accent. What else? Christy?
abusive.
Why abusive?
Because he treats his wife like trash,
All right.
and he kicks the cat.
He does kick a cat. He definitely is not very friendly to his wife. I'll give you that part too. Lolo?
He's trying to dig a well.
And he's in the process of trying to dig a well. And how would you describe Dora? Besides the fact that she's an explorer. Davies?
She's really nice.
She does come across as fairly nice. I can go with that so far. Yeah?
She's kind of like a servant to her husband.
She does act like a bit of a servant. Yeah?
She's scared of her.
And she does mention multiple, and she'll mention more getting into the fact that he is definitely abusive towards her and stuff like that. And we have, and she says she thinks he looks like something because of his little neck fatty folds of blah blah blah, blah back down below with the whole Adam's apple. And Delucia, what is it she thinks he looks like?
Turkey.
Nice, well, that's where the whole turkey thing comes in. She's like, looks like something. And that's we have the fact that they're building a well or digging a well out there. Did we get how deep the well is yet?
Like 60 feet.
Oh yeah, like
Five
five
stories.
stories high.
It's like 5, 6 stories, like about 2 or 3 houses deep, 60 feet, and he's not hit water yet. All right, we are on the second
Wait,
column.
we forgot something else.
What did I forget?
Dora's praying.
We do the fact that during this, I forgot. You guys a little bit farther in the class with Dora and her praying. And what is it? What she's praying for you?
We get
That the
water.
dirt will be more moist.
Nice. We get water with each little dirt thing that goes through. All right. Then now we're on the halfway down where it says on this particular morning, as she lowered the bucket for the 10th loading, she prayed, "Please God, let something happen this time. Let something really and truly happen, so I won't have to haul up any more dirt." Something happened, almost immediately. As the rope slackened in her hands, indicating that the bucket had reached the bottom, a scream of sheer terror came up from the hole, and the rope ladder jerked violently. Whimpering sounds of mortal fear sounded faintly, and the ladder grew taut with heavy strain. Dora fell to her knees and peered down into the darkness. "Calvin," she called, "are you all right? What is it?" Then, with startling suddenness, Calvin appeared. At first, Dora was not sure it was Calvin. The usual redness of his face was gone. Now, it was a yellowish green. He was trembling violently and had trouble breathing. It must have been a heart attack, Dora thought, and tried hard to control the surge of joy that came over her. Why would she have a surge of joy? Like, there you go. So he almost died. Yeah! Calvin lay upon the ground, panting. Finally, he gained control of himself. Under ordinary circumstances, Calvin did not converse with Dora, but now he seemed eager to talk. "You know what happened down there?" he said in a shaky voice. "You know what happened? The complete bottom dropped right out of the hole. All of a sudden it went, and there I was, standing on nothing but air. If I hadn't grabbed a hold of the last rung of the ladder, well, that hole must be 1,000 feet the way the bottom dropped out of it." Calvin babbled on, but Dora didn't listen. She was amazed at the remarkable way in which her prayer had been answered. If the hole had no more bottom, then there'd be no more dirt to haul up. When Calvin had regained his strength, he crept to the edge of the hole and peered down. "What are you going to do, Calvin?" Dora asked timidly. "Do? I'm going to find out how far down the hole goes. Get the flashlight from the kitchen."
Yeah.
Dora hurried off. When she returned, Calvin had a large ball of binder twine he brought from the tool shed. Binder twine is that stuff which you use, they call it binder twine. You use it to bind things together, like tie up presents and stuff like that, or tie up things of hay, binder twine. He tied the flashlight securely to the end of the line, switched it on, and lowered it into the hole. He paid out the line for about 100 feet, and then stopped. The light was only a feeble glimmer down below, and revealed nothing. Calvin lowered the light another 100 feet, and this time it was only a twinkling speck as it swung at the end of the line. Calvin released another long length of twine, and another, and now the light was no longer visible, and the large ball of twine had shrunk to a small tangle. "Almost a full 1,000 feet, he whispered in awe. "And no bottom yet? Might as well pull it up." But the line did not come up with Calvin's pull. It stretched and grew taut, but it did not yield to his tugging. "It must be caught on something," Calvin muttered, and gave the line a sharp jerk. In reply, there was a downward jerk that almost tore the line from his hands. "Hey!" yelled Calvin. "The line! It jerked!" "But Calvin—" "Don't Calvin me! I tell you there's something on the end of the line!" He gave another tug, and again the line was almost pulled from his hands. He tied the line to the stake and sat down to ponder the matter. "It don't make sense," he said, more to himself than to Dora. "What could be down underground a good 1,000 feet?" Tentatively, he reached and pulled lightly on the line. This time there was no response, and rapidly he began hauling it up. When the end of the line came into view, there was a small white pouch of a leather-like substance. Calvin opened the pouch with trembling fingers and shook into his palm a bar of yellow metal, gazoon type, and folded piece of parchment. You know what parchment is?
A drink.
No.
It's like a powder?
No.
Gold.
No, but a good guess also.
Wait, what is
powder?
Wait, what do you say?
Yeah, parchment. It's
Well,
like
it's like
the paper, like back when paper was made out of like cloth, like dollar bills, like a parchment. Where it looks like paper, but it's actually like clothy kind of stuff. That's what parchment is. Like the Constitution was written on parchment, which is like thick paper. What is it?
The bar of metal.
Calvin opened the book.
The bar of metal.
Is that right?
The bar of metal.
Calvin opened the book?
Bar of metal.
The bar of metal was not large, thank you, but it seemed heavy for its size. Calvin got out his jackknife, which means pocket knife, and scratched the point of the blade across the metal. The knife blade bit into it easily. "Gold," said Calvin, his voice shaky. "Must be a whole pound of it. And just for a measly flashlight. Well, they must be crazy down there." He thrust the gold bar into his pocket and opened the small piece of parchment. One side was closely covered with a fine writing. Calvin turned it this way and that, and then tossed it on the ground. "Foreigners," he said. "No wonder they ain't got any sense. But it's plain they need flashlights." "But Calvin," said Dora, "how could they get down there? There ain't any mines in this part of the country." "Ain't you ever heard them secret government projects?" asked Calvin scornfully. "This must be one of them. Now I'm going to go to town and get me a load of flashlights. They must need 'em bad. Now mind you watch that hole good. Don't let no one near it." Calvin strode to the battered truck, which was standing near the barn, and a minute later it was rattling down the highway towards Harmony Junction. Dora picked up the bit of parchment which Calvin had thrown away. She could make nothing of the writing on it. It was all very strange. If it were some secret government undertaking, why would foreigners be taking part? And why would they need flashlights so urgently as to pay a fortune for one? Suddenly, it occurred to her that possibly the people down below didn't know there were English-speaking people up above. She hurried into the house and rummaged through Calvin's rickety desk for paper and pencils. In her search, she found a small, ragged dictionary, and she took this with her to the kitchen table. Spelling didn't come easily to Dora. Her note was a series of questions. Why were they down there? Who were they? Why did they pay so much for an old flashlight? As she started for the well, it occurred to her that possibly the people down there might be hungry. She went back to the kitchen and wrapped a loaf of bread and a fair-sized piece of ham in a clean dish towel. She added a P.S. to her note, apologizing for the fact that she had nothing better to offer them. Then the thought came to her that since the people down below were obviously foreigners and possibly not too well versed in English, the small dictionary might be able to help them in answering her note. She wrapped the dictionary with the food in the towel. It took Dora a long time to lower the bucket, but finally the twine grew slack in her hands and she knew the bucket had reached the bottom. She waited for a few moments and then tugged the line gently. The line held firm below, and Dora seated herself on the mound of earth to wait. The warm sunlight felt good on her back, and it was pleasant to sit and do nothing. She had no fear that Calvin would return soon. She knew that nothing on earth, or under it, could keep Calvin from visiting a number of bars once he was in town, and that with each tavern visited, time would become more and more meaningless to him. She doubted that he would return before morning. After half an hour, Dora gave the line a questioning tug, but it did not yield. She did not mind. It was seldom that she had time to idle away. Usually when Calvin went to town, he burdened her with chores that were to be done during his absence, coupling each order with a threat of what awaited her should his instructions not be carried out. Dora waited another half hour before tugging at the line again. This time there was a sharp answering jerk, and Dora began hauling the bucket upward. It seemed much heavier now, and twice she had to pause for a rest. When the bucket reached the surface, she saw why it was heavier. "My goodness," she murmured as she viewed the dozen or so yellow metal bars in the bucket. "They must be real hungry down there." A sheet of the strange parchment was also in the bucket, and Dora picked it out, expecting to see the strange writing of the first note. "Well, I declare," she said when she saw that the note was in English. It was in the same print as the dictionary, and each letter had been made with meticulous care. She read the note slowly, shaping each word with her lips as she read. "Your language is barbaric, but the crude code book you sent down made it easy for our scholars to decipher it. We, too, wonder about you. How have you overcome the problem of living in the deadly light? Our legends tell of a race dwelling on the surface, but intelligent reasoning has made us ridicule these old tales until now. We would still doubt that you are surface dwellers, except for the fact that our instruments show without question that the opening above us leads to the deadly light. The clumsy death ray which you sent us indicates that your scientific development is very low. Other than as an object from another race, it has no value to us. We sent gold as courtesy payment only. The food you call bread is not acceptable to our digestive systems. But the ham is beyond price. It is obviously the flesh of some creature, and we will exchange a double weight of gold for all that you can send us. Send more immediately. Also, send a concise history of your race and arrange for your best scientists, such as they are, to communicate with us. Glar, the master." What's the death ray, by the way?
Flashlight.
Yeah, it's the flashlight. So that's when they were talking about the fact that the flashlight that they were sitting down before, why do they call it a death ray?
Because they don't like the light.
There you
Wait,
go.
but wouldn't there? Yeah, haven't people already dug 1,000 feet down?
That's why it's just a story.
Oh.
It's okay. If you're really planning on trying to find them, I don't think they're really there. Yeah.
China.
Oh, do they know what kind of like year it is?
I don't really say. They have, we're going to find out they have trucks and cars, but beyond that, and farms and wells, but beyond that, and flashlights, I don't know. Yeah?
Maybe they're Chinese people.
Could be.
Well, I don't know
but
any Chinese people.
Chinese people, I don't think they live in the middle of the earth.
Yeah, I know, but they, I mean, it could be that far down.
There it goes. I don't think you know how earth works. Joey?
I don't think Chinese people would consider ham
A delicacy?
And they're afraid of light. That doesn't make sense.
Shh.
Okay, guys.
It's Christy. Uh-huh.
Wouldn't they if it was Chinese people, wouldn't they want like orange chicken and
Yeah,
rice?
that's why it's not Chinese people.
Race.
Now, what is it that, Calvin, what is it Calvin wants you to go get?
Flashlights.
What is it they don't want?
Flashlights.
Uh-oh. Dora took the gold bars to her petunia bed beside the house and buried them in the loose black soil. She paid no heed to the sound of a car coming down the highway at high speed until it passed the house and a wild squawking sounded above the roar of the motor. She hurried around to the front of the house, knowing already what had happened. She stared in dismay at the 4 chickens which lay dead in the road. She knew that Calvin would blame her and beat her into unconsciousness. Fear, once again, Calvin, nice guy. Fear sharpened her wits. Perhaps if she could dispose of the bodies, Calvin would think foxes had got them. Hastily, she gathered up the dead chickens and feathers which lay scattered about. When she was finished, there was no evidence of the disaster. She carried the chickens to the back of the house, wondering how she could best dispose of them. Suddenly, as she glanced towards the hole, the answer came to her. An hour later, the 4 chickens were dressed and neatly cut up. Ignoring the other instructions in the note, she sent the bulky parcel of chicken down into the hole. She sat down again to enjoy the luxury of doing nothing. When, an hour later, she picked up the line, there was an immediate response from below. The bucket was exceedingly heavy this time, and she was fearful that the line might break. She was dizzy with fatigue when she finally hauled the bucket over to the edge of the hole. This time there were several dozen bars of gold in it, and a brief note in the same precise lettering as before. Our scientists are of the opinion that the flesh you sent down is that of a creature you call chicken. This is a supreme food. Never have we eaten anything so delicious. To show our appreciation, we are sending you a bonus payment. Your code book, what's the code book?
Dictionary.
Indicates that there is a larger creature similar to chicken called turkey. Send us turkey immediately. I repeat, send us turkey immediately. Glory the master. Land sakes, gasped Dora. They must have eaten that chicken raw. Now where in tarnation would I get a turkey? She buried the gold bars in another part of her petunia bed. Calvin returned about 10 o'clock the next morning. His eyes were bloodshot and his face was a mottled red. The loose folds of skin on his neck hung lower than usual, and more than ever he reminded Dora of something that she couldn't quite put a name to. Calvin stepped down from the truck and Dora cringed. Why is she cringing?
I know.
What is she expecting him to do?
Beat her.
Nicely
Wait,
done.
no, I said
Don't start predicting now, so
No,
you
I
guys.
haven't predicted.
I know, you're figuring things out.
I understand.
Me too.
I hate this.
But he seemed too tired and preoccupied to bother with her. He surveyed the hole glumly, then got into the truck and backed it to the edge of the mound of earth. On the back of the truck was a winch with a large drum of steel cable. Fix me something to eat, he ordered Dora. Dora hurried into the house and began preparing ham and eggs. Each moment she expected Calvin to come in and demand to know, with a few blows, what was holding up his meal. But Calvin seemed very busy in the vicinity of the hole. When Dora went out to call him to eat, she found he had done a surprising amount of work. He had attached an oil drum to the steel cable. This hung over a heavy steel rod which rested across the hole. Stakes driven into the ground on each side of the hole held the rod in place. So, if you don't know what a steel drum is, it's something like that. They use like the oil drums. So that's what they're referring to. And he has this thing that's connected to a cable on the back of like a tow truck. And it has like a big long cable that goes on it so you can like drop it into the hole. And it has like a little bar or something like that. Alright. Your breakfast is ready, Calvin, said Dora. Shut up, Calvin answered. The winch was driven by an electric motor, and Calvin ran a cable from the motor to an electric outlet on the yard light post. From the cab, he took a number of boxes and placed them in the oil drum. Whole 100 of them, he chuckled, more to himself than to Dora. 59 cents a piece, peanuts. 1 bar of gold would buy thousands. Calvin threw the switch, which controlled the winch, and with sickening force, Dora realized the terrible thing that would soon happen. The creatures down below had no use or regard for flashlights. Down went the oil drum, the cable screeching shrilly as it passed over the rod above the hole. Calvin got an oil can from the truck and applied oil generously to the rod and cable. In a very short while, the cable went slack, and Calvin stopped the winch. "I'll give him an hour to load up the gold," he said, and went to the kitchen for his delayed breakfast. Dora was almost numb with fear. What would happen when the flashlights came back up? With an insulting note in English it was too horrible to contemplate. Calvin would learn about the gold she had received and very likely kill her. Calvin ate his breakfast leisurely. Dora busied herself with household tasks, trying with all her might to cast out of her mind the terrible thing which was soon to happen. Finally, Calvin glanced at the wall clock, yawned lightly, and tapped out his pipe. Ignoring Dora, he went to the hole. In spite of her terrible fear, Dora could not resist following him. It was as if some power outside herself forced her to go. The winch was already reeling the cable when she got to the hole. It seemed only seconds before the oil drum was up. The grin on Calvin's face was broad as he reached out over the hole and dragged the drum to the edge. A look of utter disbelief replaced the grin as he looked into it. His Adam's apple seemed to vibrate under his red-skinned throat, and once again, part of Dora's mind tried to recall what it was that Calvin reminded her of. Calvin was making flat bowling sounds like a lost calf. The sounds he's making. He hauled the drum out of the hole and dumped its contents onto the ground. The flashlights, many of them dented and with the lenses broken, made a sizable pile. With a tremendous kick, Calvin sent flashlights flying in all directions. One, with a note attached, landed at Dora's feet. Either Calvin was so blinded by rage that he didn't see it, or he assumed it was written in the same unreadable script as the first note. Yeah?
Can I guess what's gonna happen?
You cannot yet. You just have to wait.
How do you know?
I know. "You down there!" he screamed into the hole. "You filthy swine! I'll fix you! I'll make you sorry you ever double-crossed me! I'll... He dashed for the house, and Dora hastily snatched up the note. "You are even more stupid than we thought. Your clumsy death rays are useless to us. We informed you of this. We want turkey. Send us turkey immediately! Glory to Master!" She crumpled the note quickly as Calvin came from the house with his double-barreled shotgun. For a moment, Dora thought that he knew everything and was about to kill her. "Please, Calvin?" "Shut up," said Calvin. "You saw me work the winch. Can you do it?" "Why, yes, but what?" "Listen to me. I'm going down there to fix them dirty foreigners. You send me down and bring me back up." He seized Dora by the shoulder. "And if you mess things up, I'll fix you too. I'll really and truly fix you." Dora nodded dumbly. Calvin put his gun in the oil drum and pushed it to the center of the hole. Then, hanging onto the cable, he gently lowered himself into the drum. "Give me just an hour to run them dirty rats down, then bring me back up," he said. Dora threw the switch, and the oil drum went down. When the cable slackened, she stopped the winch. She spent most of the next hour praying that Calvin would not find the people down there and become a murderer. Exactly an hour later, Dora started the oil drum upward. The motor labored mightily as she thought under a tremendous strain, and the cable seemed stretched almost to breaking point. Dora gasped when the oil drain came into view. Calvin was not in it. She shut off the motor and hastened to the drum, half expecting to find Calvin crouched down inside. But Calvin was not there. Instead, there were scores of gold bars, and on top of them, from a sheet of the familiar white parchment. Land sakes, Doris said as she took in full view of the drum's contents. She had no idea of the value of the treasure upon which she gazed. She only knew it must be immense. Carefully, she reached down and picked out the note, which she read in her slow, precise way. Not even the exquisite flavor of the chicken compares to the incomparable goodness of the live turkey you sent down to us. We must confess, we thought turkey would be rather different from this. But this does not matter. So delicious was the turkey that we are again sending you a bonus payment. We beg you to send us more turkey immediately. Glar, the master. Dora read the note a second time to make sure she understood it fully. Well, I declare, she said in considerable wonder. I do declare.
Oh, like that.
And there we stop. So,
Yeah.
what? Ooh, you're right, they are cannibals.
We
Which,
don't
by
know
the way, makes a reference to the book we were just reading.
Oh yeah.
They're Morlaxes.
Nicely done. The Morlock. I could not have timed that better. I wish I did it on purpose, but I did not. It's just an awesome coincidence. But in there, when Hayden was talking about the Morlocks, the underground people that are cannibals, and then all of a sudden we get to this story. I didn't even think we were reading it. We get to the story with underground people that are cannibals.
We don't know. Wait, they're not people. We don't know if
That's
they're
true. We don't know if they're people or
I
not.
think they're aliens.
But they definitely seem to be
I
carnivores,
think they're Chinese.
because they eat meat. We get that
How
much.
did he not kill them?
They must
There's probably like
have used...
50
They
of
ate him
them.
alive too.
You
Alive.
Nicely done.
What'd they do?
They, for one, remember he says whether they ate him alive or not. You go back to the, after she sent down the chicken, after the second note, where it says, land sakes, gasped Dora, they must have eaten that chicken raw, which means they don't bother cooking things. So when they sent down the turkey, then obviously they're not going to spend time
It
cooking the
says
turkey.
live turkey.
And they sent down the live turkey, and obviously they thought it was delicious, and find out what happened. Yes? Yes, they did.
Yeah, but how'd they kill
They
them?
ate him alive.
How would they?
They obviously
Man,
his
Yano?
shotgun didn't do
Amber-
anything. Yeah, his shotgun didn't do anything.
No, it didn't. Hang on. Mangano.
They don't mind cooking because they hate light.
That is true. That's a good point. You can't cook without heat and fire, so it's kind of hard. So you gotta go for just the pure, raw, yummy goodness.
What about the apple?
The Adam's apple thing? Yeah, that's where we brought in the turkey.
That's where they thought he was.
Tomorrow, we're going to go through and do a quick 7-element review of the story to try and help you out, and then we'll jump into the quiz. Other than that, homework